You thought Bastion was the most stationary character in the game? Yeah, right. Not if Lucio has something to say about that. The only thing that's gonna be stationary is your respawn timer with these two idiots around. And sure, you might not think that Lucio Bastion makes for a great duo, but I mean, who else are you gonna make friends with? Tanks? It's not like there's gonna be a lot of those around in Overwatch 2, am I right? You guys heard of the beta announcement, by the way? Granted, I might not be the best person to show you how to make friends because, well, I play Overwatch. And whenever I'm queuing with somebody, it usually looks a little something like this. No, you don't see me! Hey, Resme?
I don't know, do you want me to die?
Yes. I honestly don't understand why nobody wants to duel with me. If you want the res over me, then what about you go and annihilate the enemy backline on your own? Weird how I'm the only one showing up in the kill feed, isn't it? But this episode isn't about me and my social anxiety. No, my friends, this video is about a magical round of competitive play in which two meme lords have found themselves. And that friendship can only get stronger the more supports get spawn camped by their hands. So join me as we witness how this Lucio Bastion duo goes about throwing so hard, it might actually go full circle into allowing them to win. Because our story today takes place on Nepal. Now, when I say Lucio Bastion duo, I don't actually mean that in a literal sense. The two meme lords had not known each other until they met on Nepal, and the first fight of the game is going to reflect that. Accepting of the fact that they had to play around a Bastion OTP, the red team tried to do their darndest to facilitate his playstyle. And Orisa shield was nice, but beyond that, there were numerous attempts to force the opposition into line of sight of their meat grinder. While those attempts weren't particularly successful, the blue team would eventually have to step onto the point anyway if they cared about making capture progress, and that's where their flanking division came into play. Doomfist and Genji knew they had to stop Bastion before they lost their tanks, and as such they came flying into the backline to achieve exactly that. The red team made an effort to play the hand they were dealt, but all of their energy put into making that Bastion pick work resulted only in defeat, allowing the blue team to take the lead. Hey, that kinda rhymed. But one player had not given up hope yet. E-Type, their Roadhog god, had no intention of backing down. Stagger be damned, ready to hook any defender who dares question their reign. This was the type of distraction that Bastion could make use of a lot better than any pocket, and suddenly the tides began to turn. The defenders had to quench this uprising before it picked up any momentum if they wanted to stay in control, but our heroes were no pushover. I can only imagine the roller coaster of emotions as this Reinhardt survived getting hooked just to accidentally jump off anyway. At least one defiant fire strike together with a diving Doomfist allowed him to take out the Bastion in a desperate attempt to hold onto the capture point. The red team did not take too kindly to that assassination and went about trying to avenge their comrade, though this Doomfist was not about to get caught slacking. But alas, the blue team was in shambles, and whatever remained of their iron grip was slowly getting wrenched away from them. The capture point eventually flipped in our heroes' favor under a lot of sacrifice, but Bastion was already back to secure the area with a storm of bullets. Truly, the blue team's tanks were stuck between a rock and a hard place. Lucio, in the meantime, was making sure that no reinforcements would make it to the front line, battling Josh on the flank and, dare I say, absolutely smoking him. But this was only a stage win for the Speedy Frog because his plan was yet to come to fruition. The universal head bob of "we're about to do something really stupid" was all he needed to see to take his friends on an adventure. You wouldn't believe that actual skill rating was on the line with these morons flanking all the way around to the enemy spawn, though there is something I can assure you of: one team is about to have way more fun than the other. But a lot is about to happen in this next fight, so I hope you're ready. The blue Reinhardt immediately opened up with a shadow, to which the red Moira responded with Coalescence, after which a red Genji popped Dragon Blade to chase Zenyatta, but Zen had already popped Trance, knowing that Genji was displaying fan behavior. Following, Roadhog finally got to use Whole Hog after recovering from the shatter. They survived thanks to Coalescence, and the Whole Hog got boosted by the speed booster flanking Orisa with a bongo that was combined with Bastion's tank configuration to configure the blue team back into the spawn! Yes, so the red team got to keep the capture point. A lot had just happened there, but you don't think that this was the end of Lucio's and Bastion's trolling adventure, do you? Because the two of them immediately heading for the enemy spawn was about as certain as me begging you to click the like button. And what about you subscribe too while you're at it? Lucio was trying to play the bait and get somebody to run into his Bastion, but when he didn't get any bites, he decided to do the biting instead, much to the detriment of his poor Zen. Also, can we just take a second to appreciate Josh seeing his Zenyatta fight for his life, but not giving even the slightest hint of a damn? Good job, Josh. It is only fitting that he would meet his demise not through the enemy team, but through his own incompetence via pulse bomb. And oh my god, Lucio and Bastion are still in the enemy spawn. Benji's desperate attempt to leave the spawn room was met with unbridled fury, and even the switch to Lucio did not change that. To make matters worse, the two idiots camping set spawn made an effort to change their position every time they eliminated Benji, and since his teammate just capped the point, there won't be any help coming anytime soon. Besides Josh, of course, who made no attempt to help his support in need despite literally being shot in the back and reacting to it. He just decided to pretend he saw nothing. You don't need enemies if you have friends like that, and Benji was so struck with grief over having been abandoned that he unalived himself by jumping off the damn mountain. Good job, Josh. At this point, it became clear that Benji was just not destined to be allowed to play this game. It is the fate of oh so many supports. They were winning, but he definitely was not having a fun time doing it. Oh yeah, and about that winning part, being 2 players down, the red team had to find a way to make up for their deficit by swiftly equalizing the engagement. Not that this was of any concern to Lucio and Bastion, but Genji put on his carry pants to really try and make a dent into the blue team, hoping they would come away with skill rating on top of the Reddit clips they've been obviously farming. Any means was utilized to counter that end, and every sacrifice was made to get the capture point back. And funnily enough, the blue team having to face Lucio and Bastion in their spawn meant that upon having flip control, they actually had no chance of getting another touch or trigger overtime. That's right, the 2 of them have actually been throwing so hard following their team's hard carry, it came full circle to them winning that round. The question now is whether this is gonna keep working, or if the blue team wisened up to their mistakes. In typical, if we don't know what we're doing, how can our enemies predicted fashion, the red team had slithered their way into a first round victory. Somehow, them going about doing their own thing worked a lot better than trying to force some kind of composition, which isn't something that they appear to have realized because their tanks immediately tried to build themselves around Bastion once again. The only support that Bastion needed was his trusty speed boosting sidekick, and how switching to heroes you have no idea how to play can cost you a fight is about to become very apparent. Because not only did they have no idea how to play the double shield composition they chose, but they were also completely oblivious to the fact that Bastion was neck deep on the flank without any intention of using these barriers in the first place. The 2 meme lords had no choice. They'd be following their team's demise unless they retreat, though it's gonna come to nobody's surprise when I tell you that their escape route led not to their own spawn but to the enemies. Unfortunately for them, the blue team had wisened up and realized that the shenanigans majorly contributed to the current state of the match, so they all rallied to make sure that no support gets camped again before turning their attention back to the capture point. And this is where the real trouble began. It's so painfully obvious that the red team felt lost in the composition they decided to play. Kudos to them trying to play around their one trick, but at some point they really have to realize that there are other things you can do to win a game. For the time being, of course, the defenders were showing them what it means to be comfortable on the heroes they play, ultimately making all the difference in this round. And I think it is only fitting and probably very cathartic that Benji had a chance to get back on his oppressor after having been camped. Desperate times ask for desperate measures, and ultimate abilities were the solution before, so why wouldn't they be now? We're getting a bit of a replay of the previous cluster truck that took place when everyone pressed the Q button last time, and Josh could finally fulfill his only purpose, which is flying Dragon Strike into a Graviton. Bastion was trying to equalize the engagement, but farming eliminations equal to a bunch of ultimates was not gonna be easy, especially with a high charge Zarya getting on your case. The blue team was aware that letting this degenerate do as he pleases would cause more trouble than it's worth, but their off-tank approaching this 1v1 very timidly allowed Bastion to grab a health pack. The worst mistake they could make was turning their back on him, and suddenly the hunted became the hunter, with enough players on both teams saying, both of these nuts. God, I'm an idiot. The worst mistake they could make was turning their back on him, and suddenly the hunted became the hunter, with enough players on both teams having fallen for this to be anyone's capture point. Now, if there was ever a match that screamed that this is Overwatch, then this one would definitely not be it. Reckless attacks resulting in plenty of feeding, with everyone just wildly smashing their foreheads on their keyboard hoping for the best results. The more I think about it, the more this does sound like Overwatch, actually. Team play is overrated anyway, and to prove that point, Bastion uses ultimate not to deal damage, but for the mobility in order to get to high ground. There were hashtag no cares given about what his teammates wanted, because this man was on a mission. But the silent carry in this match was once again their Genji. Just like the point of being rich is to stay rich, they knew that in order to stay in control, they needed to chase down staggers. Though masterful as their gameplay was, their efforts were denied through the hands of Josh? In an ironic twist of fate, the least impactful DPS player in this lobby began to make his way into the kill feed, but on the correct side of it for once. Let's not forget that the blue team was playing heroes they were actually comfortable on, and that allowed them to waltz in on the capture point as though they already owned it. Genji alone could not hold this team together, and their Dragon Blade could not find the value they were looking for this time. There was something about Josh warming up his gameplay that, contrary to the first round, really made a difference, though he did need to get a pocket. Most of our heroes were wiped in an instant. Bastion getting eliminated immediately meant that their defenses were paper thin at best, and with a strong opening to the next fight, it was only a matter of time that the blue team regained control. But alas, capture progress kept ticking away in favor of the red team. Their Moira was doing their darndest to dance around the pillar and keep their team in control. The rest of their comrades rushed on over to at least trade an elimination and slowly whittle away at their opposition. Our heroes function best when everybody just does their thing, and since our enemies didn't have a united force to stand against, their attention was split any which way to try and and take out individual players rather than clearing at the points. I can't believe I'm saying this, but the blue team lost that fight. Not only that, but our heroes continued to do everything in their power to flank their enemies into oblivion. The team play on the blue team was strong, no doubt, but they would need more than goodwill to conquer the capture point, specifically eliminations, and their Doomfist was there to deliver exactly that, immediately brute forcing another opening for them to take advantage of. But their attention was split. Random players in their backline kept them on edge and turned what was meant to be a tidal wave into separate waves of attack. Of course, Josh was trying to use his newfound competence to aid his comrades and do what he was there for, firing Dragon Strike into a Graviton. But it mattered not, for Bastion was still alive and kicking. Any attempt to get onto the objective was met with that oh so familiar storm of bullets that caused the blue team trouble before already. And where the bullets could be dodged, the rockets could not, meaning that there was no place to hide. Honestly, you kinda love to see it. Bunch of homies playing ranked, having a great time and memeing to their heart's content. Overwatch is the most fun when either everybody takes it super seriously or nobody takes it seriously at all. And in this case, I'm glad that the latter came out victorious. And if you want to see some gameplay of me doing a bit of trolling for content, then what about you check out my last episode in which Nathan and I got together for a bit of a reunion. Now, I'm not saying that I was starting a fight with my own teammates, but you can find the code on screen right now. But until then, thank you everybody so much for watching. Don't forget to drop me a like on your way out if you enjoyed this video, subscribe if you want to see more, and definitely ring that bell icon to not miss out on my next upload. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and until next time, peace!